US slams Netanyahu over Iran and Congress speech. Yossi Melman says leaked files on Iran are baseless. Amnesty urges halting arms to Israel and other countries. And Zionist Union chair turns focus to security. Shalom and welcome to the Jerusalem Post News. Here are the top stories for February 25th. US Secretary of State John Kerry defended the ongoing nuclear talks with Iran on Tuesday in comments that appeared to be directed at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vocal opposition to the emerging deal. His comments came the same day as US National Security Advisor Susan Rice heaped criticism on Netanyahu over his address to Congress next month.
The policy is Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. And anybody running around right now jumping in to say, well, we don't like the deal or this or that, doesn't know what the deal is. There is no deal yet. And I caution people to wait and see what these negotiations produce.
The relationship between Israel as a country and the United States as a country has always been bipartisan. And we've been fortunate that politics have not been injected into that relationship. What has happened over the last several weeks, by virtue of the invitation that was issued by the Speaker and the acceptance of it by Prime Minister Netanyahu on 2 weeks in advance of his election, is that on both sides there has now been injected a degree of partisanship, which is not only unfortunate, I think it's destructive of the fabric of the relationship.
Israeli analyst and Jerusalem Post contributor Yossi Melman dismissed yesterday media reports casting doubt on claims by Netanyahu regarding Iran's nuclear capability timeline.
There is nothing in that document which is basically secretive. Any follower of Iran's nuclear program could have read the same information in the IAEA reports in the media. And there is nothing to suggest in the document that there was a wedge between what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said and the Israeli intelligence community estimate.
Meanwhile, in Iran today, the Revolutionary Guards staged war games in the Strait of Hormuz, including a gunboat attack on a model US warship. This was Tehran's latest display of military strength in a Gulf shipping channel, which is vital to oil exports. Amnesty International called on the global community to stop war crimes by halting arms shipments to countries such as Iraq, Syria and Israel, who they say could use them to commit mass atrocities.
Our report this year for 2014-15 provides quite shocking details of the horrific violence and human rights abuses that civilians from Syria to Ukraine, from Nigeria to Gaza, have faced in this period. But the response so far has been dismal. We've called it shameful.
Amnesty issued this call in its annual report, The State of the World's Human Rights, which examines human rights abuses in 160 countries. According to the report, Israel was one of 18 countries where war crimes were committed by the government or armed groups. Amnesty briefly mentioned that Hamas had also committed war crimes for indiscriminately firing rockets at Israel. Palestinians near the West Bank town of Bethlehem say a mosque was vandalized and set on fire before dawn today. Authorities suspect the act was carried out by far-right extremists. According to local media reports, the alleged arson took place in the village of Jabba. The police and IDF launched a probe into the incident. And Zionist Union Chairman Isaac Herzog, Netanyahu's main political rival, battled the Prime Minister's accusation that he is soft on national security.
Livni and I are running together. We're on the same ticket, but we will expose my story, my experience as a major in Unit 8-200, my experience as a minister in 5 different cabinet posts. I was a member of the Security Cabinet for 7 years. I took the most difficult decisions of life and death in closed rooms. Together with Livni, we are 15 years in that cabinet. We know what we're talking about when we're talking about security, when we're talking about foreign affairs, and when we're talking about Israel standing amongst the nations.
That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from Israel. Until then, shalom from the Jerusalem Post studio.